Today's topic is part B of Pay Attention. If you haven't seen the video on paying attention, you might want to check that out first. This can stand by itself, but I think the first video gives a good context for why I'm addressing attention in the first place. Thanks for joining me today, and thanks for giving me your attention. If you've arrived, I'll try to make it worth your while. In addition to the slogan that I have that just says pay attention, I have another slogan that expounds on that a bit. That says, give your attention and care to body, mind, relationships, and environment. These are the 4 areas that I mentioned in my first video that are territories in a map that we can refer to it when we're wondering what we should pay attention to. This has been a fundamental orienting map for me for many years, since the early 80s, really since the beginning of my career as a therapist and a coach. I've never exhausted it. It's never been something that I don't need anymore. It's really basic. It was elaborated further for me in the mid-90s by Ken Wilber with his integral theory. And these 4 areas are what he calls the quadrants, the 4 quadrants. I've given them different names than he does, but it's the same thing. I call it body, mind, relationships, and environment. He calls it something else. It's the same thing. If you think about it, just for a moment, in terms of human existence, if you're alive, whoever you are, you have a body. You have a body. Without a body, you're not alive. You have a mind. You have a subjective experience. You have thoughts and feelings and dreams. That's also part of being human. You have relationships. Everybody has relationships. Everybody was born into a family. Everybody was raised, had other people in their lives. And even if you're a loner, there are people in your life that you relate to. And you have an environment. You live somewhere, you work somewhere, you play somewhere, you exist someplace at all times. So these are fundamental to our experience, to our lives. And by consciously thinking about them, recognizing them, it gives us some orientation to where we can put our attention and what might need our care. By body, we'll start with body. Our body is, this is my body, right? You can see it on your screen. I can feel it when I touch it. I can see it on my screen if I look. So my body is my physical existence, which has an appearance that I can see. It has a physicality to it, but it also has my experience of it, the way it feels, the way it moves. So its appearance and the sensations of our body are included in this. The health of our body, our behavior, everything we do, if it's an actual action, we do it with our body. We can pay attention to our body. We can care for our body. We can care for our diet. We can care for our sleep. We can care for our appearance, our general health, our energy level. Our body has many needs, and it's good to pay attention to those needs and and get them met. It's so vast. I could go on and on and on with each one of these categories, but I'm going to try to keep it brief, just to highlight these areas. Body, okay, mind. Well, we have a subjective experience. We have thoughts that may be in the form of language, it may be in the form of images. We have feelings and emotions that we experience subjectively, that we also experience in our body. We put our attention someplace. We could pay attention to where we put our attention, where we focus our mind. We could pay attention to what we may need to learn, what our world is calling for us to know something about. And taking care of our mind might mean learning something. Maybe what's happening right now is hopefully you're learning something about these four areas. We could pay attention to the kind of thoughts we have. What is it that we tend to think about? What kind of experience do those thoughts produce? We could pay attention to our values and our beliefs. What do we believe? What do we value? Why? Can we pay attention to that? We could pay attention to our confusion when we're confused. What do we do when we're confused? Is there a way to be with that? Is there a way to gain clarity if we need clarity? Does our mind need rest? Are we overly preoccupied with our thoughts? Does all of our attention go to our internal world? Caring for our mental health, our mental well-being, which means our thinking, our feeling, and our subjective experience. Moving on, relationships. We can pay attention to people in our lives that are important, that matter to us, or that require our attention in some way. What are they about? How do they fit in our world? What do they need? Is it up to us to meet their needs? Do we want to? And what's the quality of our relationship with these people? We can pay attention to that. Is there a conflict? Is there a collaboration? Included in attending to relationships or paying attention to relationships is noticing our communication style. How are we at communicating? Would taking care of relationships possibly involve gaining some communication skills, practicing ways of asking for what we want, or setting boundaries with people when we need to say no? How do we gain intimacy? We could pay attention to that. What does intimacy feel like? How do we avoid it? How do we pursue it? How do we sustain it? We can pay attention to that and give care. So I'm saying not just attention. It's not just noticing. We notice so that we can care, so that we can respond in all of these four areas. Again, this is a whirlwind tour. It's very, very brief, but maybe this is enough just to get started. Body, mind, relationships. The fourth one is environment. We can pay attention to our world, our home, our workplace. What does it feel like to be in these environments? Are we comfortable? Are we on edge? Are they orderly enough so that they don't feel chaotic and evoke a feeling of anxiety? Are they clean? Are they safe? Are there things we may need to do to make them clean and safe? Are they beautiful? We can attend to that. Attend to being in environments, creating and taking care of environments that please us aesthetically, that evoke a good feeling. Whatever our style is, whether it's, very lavish and colorful and full of knickknacks and whatnot that make us feel good, or whether it's minimalist and elegant. Just paying attention to that. Bringing ourselves to beautiful environments and creating and maintaining beautiful environments. And including natural environments. I'm a big believer that we evolved in nature and that part of us longs to be in nature. We may not all be campers wanting to, go live in a tent in the woods for a week, but most of us gain some sense of nurturance simply by being in a natural setting, away from the chaos and the noise and the busyness of a city. So that's another way to attend to environment and taking care. So we take care of the environment and the environment takes care of us. So these are the 4 areas. There is a 5th area that can be included, and it's up to you. For me, the sum total, of all these 4 together give me a sense of spirit or spirituality, but it may be a separate thing for you. There may be a way to attend to your spirit, to your spiritual practices, your spiritual beliefs, your spiritual experiences. That sense of what's beyond this. As I said, this is a map, a set of reference points that has oriented me for decades. And I don't think I'll ever exhaust it. And I don't think any of these 4 will become obsolete or irrelevant at any point. They're ever new, ever fresh, abundant with possibilities. We can forget some of them or focus just on one or the other. We can be obsessed with our internal world, our thoughts, in our heads too much and neglect our bodies. I think we can be so focused on our bodies and its appearance that we don't cultivate our mind. We don't refine our ability to think and solve problems and ask deep questions of ourselves. We can focus on ourselves so much that we neglect our relationships, or we can focus so much on our relationships that we neglect ourselves. And certainly, most of us have had at least periods where we've neglected our environment. But I suppose there are those that put so much attention to their environment that they neglect other things. I remember when I was a kid, I had a couple different friends. Maybe this was a thing back in the 60s, where parents would have a living room that was perfect, always clean and tidy, and nobody could go in it. You couldn't sit on the furniture. You couldn't be in there. Sometimes taking care of the environment becomes an obsession where we neglected living in that environment with our bodies and with each other. Okay, so this is what I am suggesting, that if paying attention is something that makes sense to you, and I think it ought to, we can ask, so what do we pay attention to? And I asked this in the first video that I made, pointing out that there is an infinite number of things that arise for us to pay attention to. And because that is so vast, I find it helpful to have just a really basic map that suggests where things arise and what we can attend to. We can attend to our body, we can attend to our mind, we can attend to our relationships and our communication, and we can give our attention to our environment. There's also, within the integral theory and integral practices, the notion of cross-training, or what's the word? I forget the word right now, but it's when things come together and they're greater than the sum of their parts. And when we give our attention to all four of these areas, really special things start to happen. We grow, we heal, because we're each one affects the other. I've presented these, and this really does need to be said, because it's a confusion and an objection that can come up. We're not walking around with four things all the time. These are all intimately tied together. They're really just perspectives for looking at one thing. One thing is our being, and our doing, and it has these facets to it, but they're intimately related to each other and affect each other. What affects your body will affect your mind. What affects your mind will affect your body. Both of those can have an impact on your relationships. Your relationships can have an impact on your mind and your body. Your environment has an impact on all of the three, and all of the three obviously have an impact on the environment. One example of this impact going both ways, I sometimes talk with clients about working from the outside in rather than the inside out, which means to calm anxiety and to find peace of mind and to have a sense of being oriented in our lives, instead of just examining our interior world, analyzing our dreams and analyzing our childhoods and thinking about ourselves. We can organize our home. We can pick up the mess, the physical mess that's around us, create a beautiful environment to be in that has reminders of why life is good, working from the outside in. So I'm going to wrap this up now, but these four areas, and will include spirit, are something that I'll be coming back to. I may not always explicitly mention it in my other videos, but sometimes I will. And most of the things that I'll have to say on any topic can be considered from each of these four perspectives that would have all of these four dimensions. I hope you have found this of value. I hope you will come back and join me again, and we can explore some more of how to make use of this map. The slogans that I'm putting on mugs and t-shirts and tote bags they're not just thoughts to be remembered. So it's not, so the slogan, pay attention, is not just to remember that thought. It's to actually pay attention. Give attention and care to body, mind, relationships, environment isn't just a nice thought to remember. If you have a coffee mug and it's on it and you say, okay, yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, good idea. It's worthless that way. It's kind of like the person who has a grocery list, what they need at the store: milk, eggs, cheese, whatever, bread. And yeah, it's like, that'd be good. Well, you have to actually go to the store and buy the stuff. So these slogans are injunctions, really, to practice something, to do something about them. They're simply reminders to do those things. Okay. Well, may you give attention and care to your body, your mind, your relationships, and your environment. And may you reap the benefits. May you taste the fruit of giving your attention and care to these things. It will make a difference. Thanks. Toodaloo.